I'm Dr. Amy and welcome to another episode of Dr. Confidential. Today, we are going to go through a comprehensive look at your cycle and how you can fast, exercise, and live to optimize your body, your mind, your health with your cycle. Let's get into it. What I have drawn very poorly here, by the way, is a kind of a depiction of what happens during a woman's monthly cycle. So on average, a woman has a 28-day cycle, and this dotted line is pretty much where ovulation occurs in the middle. Ovulation is usually at day 14. For most people. Now, for women who don't know their cycle, this is going to be an exercise for you because when you start to track your cycle, you will call the day of menstruation as day 1. That's here, okay? And then you ovulate. Ovulate is when your ovary releases an egg for potential fertilization or not, and that's at day 14. If you have a 28-day cycle. Now, some women have 29 days, some women have 30, some women have 26 or 27. So it's a midpoint of your cycle. Now, if you're trying to fast and work out optimally for your cycle, you're gonna wanna know this part. This part of your cycle, days 1 through 14, okay? First part of your cycle. So day 1 is your period, day 14 is ovulation. This is called the follicular phase. This is the time you want to fast. So if you want to remember it, think F, fast. This is a time where your body is very, very resilient to stress. So this is the time you want to go hard on the fasting or on the workouts or whatever hard means to you. This is when you should do it. This is when your body maybe works closer to male physiology. And so this is when you really want to work on more fasting or longer fasting, more heavy workouts, whatever heavy means to you. So that might be a high intensity workout for you. And it also means you are more sensitive to carbohydrates, meaning your body is more able to digest and process carbohydrates without having a huge insulin spike. So this is a time if you want to experiment with a little higher carbohydrate diet, that could work, especially because your activity level may be higher during this time. This is a great time to make big decisions. Your mind is clear in terms of like hormonal flux, especially around day 14, you have really great levels of estrogen and progesterone. And if you've noticed, there's a green line down at the bottom. That's your testosterone. Now, testosterone seems to bump up a little bit around ovulation. And this is a great time to do some muscle building. This is also a time you'll feel the most energy. And so you may want to experiment with different types of fasting during that time. Then we have post-ovulation. So day 15 through 28. Day 15 through 28, this is the luteal phase. This is the time where things start to change for your hormones, okay? If you've noticed this blue line, which depicts estrogen, starts to go down during the second half of the cycle, okay? And your progesterone starts to go up. Now, progesterone is catabolic, meaning that it's not as great for muscle building as the estrogen is. And so you might notice a little more breakdown of muscle. You also are more sensitive to stress at this time of your cycle. What does this mean? Your body is not capable of handling the same amount and intensity of stress that you were able to handle in the follicular phase. That might mean that you feel a little more stressed out. You may not be able to handle the higher levels of workouts and that longer fasting or more frequent fasting. So this is a time to maybe pull back a little bit on this fasting and also on the workouts, especially as you get to the last week before your period, which most people think of as the PMS time, the premenstrual syndrome time. That's this late luteal phase. The late luteal phase is when you're going to feel tired. This is when you're going to feel stressed out, especially if you're trying to do too much exercise and too much fasting at this time. You want to start doing maybe nature walks, things that take down your stress levels. You want to do yoga and Pilates and things that really revitalize you and give you energy, but they don't necessarily increase your cortisol load because you're not as good as processing it at this time. And unfortunately, you're also not as good processing carbohydrates during this time. So this, even though a lot of people feel PMS and they want to eat all the chips and chocolate in the world, this is not the best time to be eating very highly refined carbohydrates. This is a time to eat more fast, satiating foods, things that won't make your insulin and glucose rise like a peak because you are just less equipped hormonally to process simple carbohydrates. So this is a time, the late luteal phase, think of it as a time to nurture your body, to take a little break from the fray. This is the time you might not want to schedule very high intensity projects or decisions or things that require a lot of intense work and stress. So this is the time of month that you want to be in the restorative mode. So just to summarize, in the beginning of your cycle, day 1 through 14, so most people don't want to necessarily just jump into exercise on day 1 of their period, but around day 2 or day 3, you get your energy back. And this is the time that you want to start to do more fasting and more exercise if you'd like. You want to take on those intense projects at work. You might want to schedule your life so that you're doing more intensive work around that time. You may want to change your diet a little bit so that you're eating more carbohydrates to fuel your workouts, your work, your fasting, and etc. And then maybe around ovulation, you want to do more weight training for those couple of days, day 10 through 16, you're doing a little more weight training, which you should be doing all month long, but maybe you want to concentrate some heavy lifting during that time. And then of course, late luteal phase is when you really want to switch to nurture mode, where you're going to pull back or maybe even stop intermittent fasting. And maybe you're going to do workouts that are much less intense and more concentrating on revitalizing your body and feeling good. Remember that especially as you approach day 28, your hormone levels, progesterone and estrogen are dropping. So ladies, if you feel a lower mood or have disturbed sleep right before your period, like during your late luteal phase, this is likely because progesterone levels are very linked to serotonin. When your serotonin levels are low, you might feel down, you might feel low energy, and you might have disturbed sleep. So that happens around the very late luteal phase when both estrogen and progesterone are dropping. So you have to understand that in a woman's menstrual cycle, there are many different phases, and you can time your life, your intermittent fasting, and your exercise to optimize the way you function and to be more in sync with your cycle. So I hope this was helpful for you in order to find a intermittent fasting schedule, an exercise schedule, and a life schedule that can more closely match your natural hormonal fluctuations. I'm Dr. Amy, and I hope you watch my other videos about intermittent fasting, about gut health, behind the scenes information, and I thank you for being here.